because it's so international, it's going to transcend any one currency and currency valuation.
Yep, you heard that correctly. For some months, it's no secret that BlackRock has been pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto. But after this interview with CNBC, it seems like Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, is not only pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto, but he's actually urging people and investors to realize how important this actually is. This interview also came several hours after a bombshell report of XRP partially winning its lawsuit against the SEC. And while there's tons of things we need to go into over this lawsuit, and there's some very important points you need to understand, just know overall it's a really good sign for the whole crypto community. And while we're about 80% of the way to the next Bitcoin halving, this is shaping up to be one of the most historical and revolutionary crypto bull runs ever. Welcome back to the channel. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day. I would like to preface this video with some realism. Now, while there's a lot of great news coming out for the entire crypto industry, I'll do my best to put my emotions aside and simply look at the data and the objectiveness of everything that's going on to give you guys the best analysis that I can. Now, with that being said, let's dig into some of the exciting news that's coming out. Obviously, the first thing that I want to get into is Larry Fink and his interview with CNBC. Now, BlackRock and just about every other financial institution has recently just filed for a Bitcoin spot ETF months ago. And that seems to have made everyone become very bullish on Bitcoin and the whole crypto industry after years of recessionary talks and how the economy is going into a slowdown. However, as weeks have gone by, it seems like BlackRock and Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, is becoming more and more convinced of just how revolutionary Bitcoin actually is. Now, here's a 30-second clip of the CEO of the largest asset manager in the world being a Bitcoin cheerleader.
More and more global investors are asking us about the role of crypto. And as I said, I do believe a lot of crypto is going to be, it's an international asset. It has a differentiating value versus other asset classes, but more importantly, because it's so international, it's going to transcend any one currency and currency valuation. If you just look at the value of our dollar, how it depreciated the last two months, and how much it appreciated over the last 5 years, I mean, an international crypto product can really transcend that.
No, it's really hard to put into words how important that is, or how crazy of a statement that is by one of the largest asset managers in the entire world. Now, while it's very important, I also think it's necessary to understand that this isn't going to impact Bitcoin's price today or tomorrow. That's not a short-term effect, but this will have effects on it months down the road, or possibly, a year from now. And that's really where all of this bullishness is coming from. But in the short term, we need to understand what's happening with Bitcoin's price so you can better position yourself and dollar cost average at better levels than what we're at right now. Now let's go over this Bitcoin chart. Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So the first thing I want to do is that yesterday, literally almost 24 hours ago, I put out a tweet, which you can go on my Twitter and you can see. I said, calling it now, the rise up in Bitcoin price is just a liquidity/bull trap. Sweep to the local highs, followed by move back to the downside. Obvious resistance and support never last. Now, this is a picture after the XRP news came out. Literally everything was pumping and everyone thought that Bitcoin was breaking out to the upside. However, if you look to the left over here, you can see that there's obvious resistance and there's obvious buyer and seller liquidity over here to the left. And I said, what's going to happen is we're going to pump up above this, and then we're going to rocket, not really rocket, but drain back to the downside. Now you can see that I pinned the tweet just so you could see where price currently was, and look at what happened to price. I mean, and I'm not going to sit here and boast and be like, oh, look at me, I was right. I'm just saying, when you look at the short term and you look at the market structure, sometimes it's a little obvious when, you just have to look at where money is or where liquidity is sitting. And so what we are seeing now is that this wasn't the catalyst to put Bitcoin back into a bull market. XRP winning its lawsuit and barely winning its lawsuit, which we'll go into in a little bit, is not going to be the catalyst for Bitcoin. The catalyst will be the spot Bitcoin ETFs getting approved, and the timeline of when that happens, we still don't know, but that's really what we're looking for. In the short term, though, this was an obvious liquidity trap, and obviously with all that good news pumping Bitcoin's price above these local highs, which you could see over here and over here, taking that short-term money out and then plummeting back to the downside. So for now, what I'm seeing in Bitcoin is that now that we've taken out these highs in the short-term trader mindset, right? We've taken out liquidity from these people, highs that were sitting over here, and then obviously highs that were sitting over here. We are back in this range. And what I personally think, what I've said in my last video, if you go back and watch that, I think that we could personally sweep the lows of 29.5, which would be right here. And of course, if we just take a look at this chart, just see what happened over here at 31.5, how we had obvious resistance and then we swept it and then we shot back to the downside. I think what we're seeing now is the same exact thing, but on the downside. We have some pretty obvious levels of support right over here. And so what I think is going to happen is that we're going to sweep down to these lows, however it may happen, and then we come back to the upside. How low we can go, I honestly think we could go to like 28,000. Because if we take our Fibonacci tool from where we were kind of sitting at the bottom over here and bring it to the top right above here, you can see that 50% sits at around 28,000. And I personally think we just have too much of an imbalance or too much of buyer liquidity sitting over in these prices. So what I think could happen is somewhat kind of like a sweep right in this area. And then maybe that's kind of what puts us back into this range. But I do see us falling below 29.5 because, again, we do have a buyer liquidity and seller liquidity down at these prices. And I do want to emphasize that in the short term, Bitcoin's price is just going to chop around. It's not really going to do much. I really don't see it going past anywhere like 35K to its highest. And I think we could even possibly sweep these lows and come as low as 25K. So I think that's really the range that we're going to see for a while now. And when we're looking at this, if we're talking about when Bitcoin is going to actually start to skyrocket, you can see that typically happens during the halvings. Now, the second halving right around here, you could see that Bitcoin's price from 80% kind of did go to the upside right around here, but really no crazy price action. Once the halving started, just months after, we started hitting new all-time highs, which you could see indicated by these kind of like black dots. Over here, when we were 80% away from our third halving, right around here, you can see that Bitcoin's price was actually going to the downside, followed by a massive liquidity push down here, taking a lot of those buyers out of the markets. And then that's when we had our halving, and then we started reaching new all-time highs. I think we're going to see something exactly the same, where in terms of Bitcoin's price, let's say we go to the larger time frames, what I think is going to happen, let me indicate this kind of by, so April of 2024 is going to be the halving, so right around here. What I personally think is going to happen is we're going to see some choppiness wherever it may be to the upside or the downside, but really nothing that's going to show insane amounts of price action to whatever side. And then once we get to the halving, that's when we start to see those parabolic moves, because around, I would say, January to April of 2024, I think that's when we're going to see some clear evidence of when a Bitcoin spot ETF will be released. And once one gets released, there's really no reason for other ones to get approved as well. So that's kind of the timeline on that. Now, the next thing I want to get into is the very important SEC case with Ripple and what you need to know about it. So the first thing that I want to get into is the good news behind the Ripple case. Now, here's a myth that you need to understand. Ripple did not technically win its case against the SEC. There were just some clear rules that kind of divided the case. However, the three really big things that you need to know that are good is that the token, XRP itself, is not a security. That's important to understand. Ripple's sale of XRP on crypto exchanges is also not a security offering. That's why you're seeing Gemini, Kraken, and Coinbase relisting XRP, because the sale of it to the general public is okay. And the reason for that is because it's a blind bid and ask. If you don't know who you're buying your XRP tokens from, then it's technically not a security. And the third thing is a token is completely separate from the investment contract, which is a really big legal battle that the crypto industry has been fighting recently. Those are the three really big things that you need to understand. Now, here's two really bad things, especially if you're an XRP holder. And I know I'm probably going to get some heat for this because there's an XRP cult out there that love XRP no matter what. But The judge did say that Ripple still violated security laws when it sold over $750 million worth of XRP tokens to banks, hedge funds, venture capitalists, and other institutional players. That's when XRP and a lot of these altcoins can be considered securities, when they're being sold to bigger players. And so now Ripple and the SEC have to kind of go back to court and figure out the rest of those claims. And while XRP itself is not a security, which is good for the rest of the altcoin industry, they now have to kind of figure out this sale of over $750 million. So really the company is still at fault, but however, the token itself is kind of doing okay. And not to put a damper on anyone's investments, or if you are invested in XRP, just look at this. In the last 24 hours after that news came out, XRP basically doubled in price. And since from the top in literally 12 hours, it has already dropped almost 30%. And so when you look at this chart, you're basically just looking at a chart that had massive implications and very good bullish news. However, that bullish news is not sticking, as you could see how crazy of a wick this is. And in a few hours, XRP has already dumped 30%. So while people were holding XRP at this price and basically doubled their bag in less than 24 hours, obviously a lot of them sold here, but a lot of the XRP cult and a lot of the XRP hodlers are going to continue to hold their bags until they come all the way back down to here, basically not getting any money. And it's important to understand when you zoom out and look at the bigger time frames, because when you're looking at XRP compared to the USD, it may be looking good, but when you're comparing it to something like Bitcoin that has real staying power and has some real momentum behind it, like the spot Bitcoin ETFs and massive institutional players, you could see that for years, since 2018, over here, the beginning of 2018, XRP valued against Bitcoin has continuously continued to drop. And this little spike is just a penny in the bucket, showing us that there's really no momentum when you're comparing XRP to other assets like Bitcoin or Ethereum. And so we're already looking at how big of a wick this is and how much momentum has already been lost in less than 24 hours. And I think over time, it's just going to continue to bleed, especially once we start to get those spot Bitcoin ETFs coming out, and how important that's going to be. So not to really bash on XRP, I think what happened is really good for a lot of XRP holders, but with just how everything is going and all the news around everything and the potential in other coins, personally, I'm just not invested in XRP, and I just can't get behind it, especially with everything else happening in the crypto markets. But those are just some really important updates that I needed you guys to know for XRP. And personally, for me, I'm still somewhat bearish on the whole altcoin season. I still don't think altcoins are going to be pumping. I don't think this is the catalyst that's going to get altcoins going into altcoin season. I still do think there's a lot of bearishness, and I'll make a video in the next couple of days basically talking about how the altcoin reckoning is not finished yet. But just for example, when we look at this massive down trend line, altcoins still can't break above this downtrend line, and it continues to trade lower and lower, making lower lows, lower highs, and we're probably going to make lower lows again as well. And again, looking at the larger time frame, while we did have this massive breakout to the upside, you can see that literally the next day we're starting to push down, and these wicks are an indication that there's a loss of bullish momentum and that we could continue trading to the downside. And here's one chart that I want you guys to understand. Now, the ticker symbol for this is the Bitcoin dominance, Ethereum dominance, USDT dominance, and USDC dominance. Basically, I saw this on a video, and I thought of it as like an altcoin season index. Now, what you can do is that it looks at the dominance of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoins to see how much of the market they control. When they control most of the market, around 85 to 90%, that signals altcoin season may be right around the corner. But when we take a look at this altcoin season index, so to say, right, we can see that it's only at 80%, and it has continuously been rising. Now, the more that it rises and the more that it continues to go up, that's just telling us that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the stable coins are eating up most of the cryptocurrency market cap. This typically happens when we are not in altcoin season. And as you can see, is the last bull market that happened, obviously Bitcoin was rising into the bull market right in the early 2020, right around the pandemic. And altcoin season started whenever all three of these asset classes had most of the dominance in the market, around 90%. And so what I'm waiting for currently is I'm waiting for this dominance to basically get back to around, I would want to say 90 to 85%. Until the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stablecoin dominance gets back to this level of around 85 to 90%, I wouldn't imagine altcoin season to start yet. So again, I still do see altcoin reckoning happening. I still think that we have more dominance that needs to be shifted to Bitcoin and Ethereum and the stablecoin market. And until we get up to this point, I still would not be looking to invest in altcoins in my personal bag. But again, that's not to take away from the massive news that we started off with this video, how important it was for Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, to basically be a cheerleader for Bitcoin. Again, I want you guys to remember that that's more of a months down the road type of thing. And as of right now, in today's price over the next few days or few weeks, we're still going to see some bearishness. I still think we're going to see prices drop. We're already seeing the momentum fleeing the markets and people are taking profits. But in the long term, early 2024, I think that's when we really start to see momentum pick up to the upside. But until then, we'll keep you guys updated on the daily occurrence of what's happening in these cryptocurrency markets. I'll start looking into a few more altcoins to kind of help you stay up to date on all of those. But until then, make sure you like the video, subscribe so you stay up to date on these daily events. Until the next one, I'll see you guys then. Peace.